Episode 8, God with Us, The Narrow Way Back to the Garden. Everything we have walked through so far has been moving toward this moment. The garden, the fracture, the promise, the long preparation, the law that exposed sin, the kings who failed, the prophets who warned and waited. None of it was the solution. All of it was preparation. Because the problem humanity faced was not ignorance, it was not lack of effort, it was not absence of religion. The problem was separation from God. And separation cannot be healed by knowledge alone. Why knowledge is not enough. This is a hard truth, especially for thoughtful, serious believers. The Bible itself tells us that knowledge alone does not restore relationship. Scripture even tells us that demons understand the story. They recognize who Jesus is. They know his authority. They know the outcome. And yet, they are not restored. Why? Because knowledge can acknowledge truth without surrendering to it. The garden was not lost because humanity lacked information. It was lost because humanity chose independence over trust. And that means the way back must restore relationship, not merely awareness. The core problem the Bible has been solving. From Eden onward, humanity faced one central barrier. A holy God cannot dwell in the presence of sin, and sinful humanity cannot survive unmediated holiness. This is not a legal problem, it is an ontological one. God is life. Separation from Him is death. That is why the Old Testament is filled with distance, veils, priests, sacrifices, boundaries, warnings. Not because God is distant by nature, but because humanity became incompatible with His presence. The story is not about God being unwilling to come near. It is about humanity being unable to survive His nearness. Why God had to come as one of us. This is where everything changes. God does not send another law. He does not raise another king. He does not demand better obedience. God comes Himself, not in power, not in glory, but in flesh. This is not symbolism. This is necessity. Only God can bridge the gap. But only a human can stand in humanity's place. So God becomes both. Fully God, able to overcome sin. Fully human, able to represent us. This is why Jesus is not merely a teacher or prophet. If Jesus is not God, the story collapses. If Jesus is not human, redemption fails. The incarnation is not inspirational, it is essential. The second Adam and the reversal of the fall. Scripture calls Jesus the second Adam for a reason. Adam stood in a garden with everything provided and chose autonomy. Jesus stands in a wilderness with nothing provided and chooses obedience. Adam grasped at equality with God. Jesus, though equal with God, humbles himself. Adam's disobedience brought separation. Jesus' obedience restores access. This is not coincidence. It is reversal. Redemption does not ignore the fall. It undoes it. The cross, where justice and mercy meet. The cross is not an interruption. It is the center. Everything before it points toward it. Everything after it flows from it. At the cross, sin is judged, not excused. Justice is satisfied, not bypassed. Mercy is extended, not diluted. This is why the Old Testament sacrifices mattered. They were never the solution. They were symbols. Every lamb pointed forward. Every drop of blood whispered, "This is not enough," until one sacrifice was. Jesus does not cover sin temporarily. He removes it judicially. The blood does not hide sins for a season. It covers them eternally. This is not metaphor. It is covenant. Why faith is required. Here is the narrow way. Salvation is not automatic. Understanding the story is not enough. Agreeing intellectually is not enough. Salvation comes by grace through faith. Faith is not mere belief that Jesus existed. It is trust. It is surrender. It is dependence. It is returning to what was lost in the garden, relationship with God based on trust rather than autonomy. This is why Jesus says He is the way, not a way, not one truth among many, the way. Because there is only one solution that actually addresses the problem. Why there is no other way. This is often misunderstood as arrogance. It is not. If the problem were ignorance, education would be enough. If the problem were behavior, law would suffice. If the problem were power, kings would have saved us. But the problem is separation caused by sin. Only God can solve that. And He did. Not by demanding we climb back to Him, but by coming down to us. This is not exclusion. It is rescue. Relationship restored, not religion perfected. What Christ restores is not ritual compliance. It is access. The veil is torn. The barrier is removed. The Spirit now dwells within. This is why Christianity is not primarily a moral system. It is a relational restoration. The garden pattern returns. God with His people. Communication restored. Purpose renewed. Shame removed. And this time, it is not fragile. Why this episode is the crux. If someone understands every other episode and misses this one, they have missed the point. The ark explains the story. Christ completes it. This episode is the hinge of the door, the narrow path, the necessary center. Not because God is limiting, but because the problem demanded a specific solution, and God provided it. The invitation embedded in the story. The Bible is not merely telling us what God did. It is asking us something. Will we return to trust? Will we surrender autonomy? Will we enter relationship? The garden was lost through unbelief. It is regained through faith. Not faith in an idea, not faith in a story. Faith in a person. God with us. God for us. God as one of us. Looking ahead. In the final episode, we will see where this leads, not to escape, but to restoration, not to abstraction, but to eternity, not to another garden guarded, but to a garden city open forever. But make no mistake, there is no episode 9 without episode 8. This is the door, and it only opens one way.